What's up, YouTube? It's your boy Anime Princess, and today we're gonna watch some B-roll footage from day 2 as I talk about the stuff we got accomplished that day. Alright, so first of all, we started off trying to 5-link the WIDOWHAIL so I could take off the singularities to put back on the very defensive rearguard setup. And that got done pretty early on stream. So we went back, we cut our damage by quite a bit. However, as the day progressed, I started dropping more and more defensive auras for offensive ones, which you can do when you're using very defensive items such as rearguard. I was able to res cap without Purity of Elements, so I made sure to capture the boss that gave us freeze immunity for the Brine King Pantheon, and we just took off Purity Elements and I put on Zealotry because we had already crit swapped yesterday, and Zealotry is one of the crit damage auras. So there we go, we got one extra damage aura, and then pretty late into the stream, actually like right before I went to bed, we did a little bit of Gamba, and I was able to use the Alva temples we had farmed for the past 2 days to double corrupt Lightning Coil into 6 white, and we also managed to 6-link it, so putting that on gives us a lot of fizz damage mitigation, so I decided I wanted to try dropping Determination for haste. And we did like one map with that. The character's still not configured really for that sort of defensive setup. So going into day 3, we're gonna start tweaking stuff around and hopefully getting a little bit more damage on the character. All right, so the stuff we accomplished, we did the entire Atlas minus a few unique maps. So we have basically my league start plan for doing Blight is completely set up. I'll post a link of my actual tree in the description for what it looks like, but it's basically just what we had planned before League. We went and we did Eater of Worlds and Steering Exarch Voidstones ourselves as soon as we had unlocked them. I decided to try it with WIDOWHAIL Rearguard, and the fights went pretty slowly, but we did manage to kill them on the first try. Now this sort of got my expectations for Maven as a possibility, so I rushed into doing Maven and wasn't able to kill Maven. Please keep in mind, WIDOWHAIL Rearguard Spark especially is a mapper on the first few days, and this sort of knocked me back down to reality. What we should be focusing on is not trying to be killing bosses. We are pretty tanky, and we should leverage that into doing mapping style content. So for day 3, in the upcoming stream when we wrap up this video, I plan to focus solely on blighted maps. Now, well, blighted maps and the blight mechanic inside of red maps. With 2 void stones, I would suggest using Waste Pool for your favorited map because that's T14 and it's a really good map for running blight. So we're going to be spamming a lot of Waste Pool. As you progress through your atlas, you will unlock a second atlas tree at 50 maps completed and the final one at 100 maps completed. So it's possible we may come up with an alternate farming strategy so we can bounce back between Waste Pool and a connected map while doing 2 different strategies, but I haven't really settled on what I want to do. So maybe that's something I'll, sort of investigate once we boot up the stream for day 3. Once you finish your atlas completion and you start spamming Waste Pool, you should be bulk crafting your maps in a tab and rolling over certain modifiers. So I've made a map Regex to filter out the ones that are just going to make your time absolutely horrible, and it'll be in the video description. I'll also have a chat command on Twitch, which will have the most up-to-date one that we're using. So the one I'm using right now takes off 5 modifiers. The first one is monsters reflect LE damage. You may or may not be reflect immune depending on your gear, so I'm just going to assume you're not, and we're going to filter that out. The next one is cannot leech from monsters. We are essentially leeching our mana through Eldritch Battery, and we're also leeching our life, so this just hits in 2 ways and it makes it pretty bad. Minus max res will get you killed. It's doable, but I'm going to filter it out. Players have less recovery rate of life, and energy shield is one of my least favorite modifiers. It makes the map so much rippier because your energy shield is your mana as well as your life pool. So when you have such low recovery rate, you could just get to a point where you can't even cast your spells because you've taken enough damage and you haven't been able to maintain it. The final thing I filter out is monsters take reduced extra damage from critical strikes. This will make your maps take twice as long at the very least. I just can't be bothered with it. Oh, and I almost forgot, there is one modifier that absolutely bricks blighted maps. And also, you shouldn't be doing this when you're doing blight content in regular maps. It's monsters' action speed cannot be modified below base value. This makes it so our pumps will not slow down enemies and you'll just get overrun early on in the league. Also, this is just bad in general for Spark because we're relying on chill and freeze to control the enemies on screen as well as off screen. So when you can't modify their action speed, you cannot freeze them, you cannot chill them. I would also roll over this. All right, moving on, let's go over the path of buildings we've saved. This is the first one, and we haven't done really anything. We've just put on the WIDOWHAIL rear guard, and we've cut our damage in half, as you can see. You can look at the gem links. I don't think, yeah, we haven't 5-linked the bow yet, but that's going to come up shortly in the next path of building. This is the second tree for the day, and it involves the 5-link WIDOWHAIL for a curse setup, as well as we've done a little bit of fine tuning to cut out some defense in order to really boost the damage for red maps. So we're now sitting at 1.5 boss damage with all our buffs up, and obviously it's going to be less without the buffs. So let's go over all this. First of all, once you have the WIDOWHAIL curse setup with Anathema, you no longer want the elemental inversion mastery. So this saves us 5 points right here. And you can spec that into the damage nodes you see. I did end up going for some damage jewels, and I will actually show you how to find cheap damage jewels because this is something that is not at all obvious for most people. You're going to go to the item section of your character and you're going to import your character into Path of Building with all the correct configurations. Everything has to be configured correctly for this to work. You go trade for these items, and then you need to enter your PoE session ID. Make sure this says session mode. You shouldn't be showing your session ID publicly, so I'm not going to do a demo on this, but you can Google a tutorial. So just calibrate this properly. This lets it search for your specific character. Now click on the socket that you've spec'd, and you just click Find Best. You need to make sure the league is set to Necropolis. And for the weights, I like to make it 1 for DPS, and by default, it's going to have like some other weightings in here, but I don't care about anything except for damage, so we're only going to look for damage. And now we click Find Best and Execute. And if you've set it up correctly, it's going to give you a trade link, and you just hit, well, you go back to the trade link, and you control click, it's going to open it in your browser. And you need to click sum. Sort by sum, and it's going to sort for the highest damage down to the just less and less damage. So there's actually a really cheap one for 5 chaos that's super good for me. And there are going to be some expensive ones. So let's say you want to get the best jewel with a budget of 30 chaos. Then you just type chaos maximum 30 and search by sum. And yeah, this one's just severely underpriced. And then the next one is exactly 30 chaos because this guy sort of knows how to price stuff. You're going to get a ton of damage with your jewel sockets this way. These are going to be extremely efficient ways to get damage. This character, other things we've done, we have taken off the purity elements as I mentioned earlier. So let's look at the gem setups. Frost Shield. So we could honestly probably take off these stages. Then we'll go from 1.5 down to 1.3. It's a little bit more realistic for our damage because we're not always going to be standing in Frost Shield. But as you can see, that is the buff when you stand in Frost Shield. Regular Frostblink, Frostblink Windfree Blast, Tornado. The damage from Tornado is not being calculated, but the way it works is as you cast Sparks into the Tornado, it will amp up the damage, and then Tornado will help deal a little bit more damage to bosses. We have Zealotry Aura. This is what we've subbed in for Purity Element, so we gained a little bit of damage there. Automation Steelskin. Now, this is something I was actually screwing up on day 2 because I completely forgot, but Automation is an aura. So this turns, well, no, it's not an aura, but it's a toggleable skill like an aura. So whenever you die, you need to make sure you turn your automation back on so that our Steelskin can keep proccing. So that just a tip there, something I was screwing up, something probably some of you guys are screwing up as well. We still have Determination on. This is the Arcanist brand setup. Now Punishment would be good, but I just couldn't get a red socket in. So the order of priority is Sniper's Mark, then Ellie Weakness, and Conductivity and Frostbite are the less important ones. If I could get in Punishment, I'd probably put it above these two. Punishment is not going to show damage in the config, but there is a way to do custom modifier for it. And if you look at the League Start guide, you will find the custom modifier to input punishment damage. We're still using Grace. The Spark 6 link has not changed. And I squeezed in Dread Banner to get a little bit more evade chance. Yeah. That is the setup. And I'm not going to show you the lightning coil tree because we 6-linked the lightning coil with 6 white sockets like 15 minutes before I went to bed. So the tree didn't change, even though lightning coil probably warrants a little bit of, well, I would probably take off some armor and possibly think about making a big shift out of this area, but that would involve some extra investment. So I might just be using the lightning coil somewhat suboptimally until I can make the bigger changes to do a bigger tree swap. So yeah, that was day 2, and we're going to go live after this video goes up, and I plan to just do a bunch of mapping through all of day 3. We've set up the Atlas. It's time to make use of it. So yeah, we have a mapping day 3, and the upcoming days, it's probably just going to be a lot more mapping because WIDOWHAIL Spark excels at mapping, and you should just focus on the content you're good at. Hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll catch you live on Twitch. Peace. 50-50. Fuck. Oh, you did it. What? Oh my god. I don't deserve this kind of luck.